You really have to sit down and go, what is my pie in the sky and can I do it? The worst that can happen is they say no and you don't, and you haven't lost any skin in the game.
Welcome to Mixing Up Midlife, the weekly podcast for women in their 50s and beyond who want to explore this incredible age by being more adventurous and more curious.
She's doing what I do.
She is. I'm Terri.
And I'm Melissa. And we are so excited today. Coming from Crested Butte, Colorado, we have Dawna Jarvis. We are so excited because Dawna showed up on my TikTok FYP. I immediately sent this over to Terri, and I guess she immediately reached out to you.
In seconds.
I'm not as brave, but I was because she just ticks all the boxes for this podcast.
Absolutely.
So Donna's taking a real different route in her empty nesting life. She has left the corporate world and she's enjoying the adventures had by seasonal work.
And she's doing
So
a happy
welcome,
dance right
Dawna.
now.
doing the
And she's so
happy
happy to be doing it. And she makes me want to walk out the door right now, even though my work isn't that corporate.
I think what you're doing, Dawna, is, first of all, welcome. But I
Thank you.
think it is aspirational, exciting, adventurous. And again, like Melissa said, you're checking every single box. So tell our listeners what you did and what you do.
So I left corporate America. I was a healthcare marketing executive. I left that field in 2015. I called it my God smackdown. Because clearly I was not happy and things were not going great. So I struggled, COVID, ended up getting divorced, daughter left, empty nest.
All at once.
COVID hit. I was trapped living with my ex-husband. And in 2022, I went, this is enough. And so I went looking for alternative ways of working because I was just barely scraping by. And I discovered seasonal work.
Now, how did you discover seasonal work?
Well, I specialize in digital marketing.
Okay.
So the internet's my playground.
Awesome.
And I had an epiphany. I have a friend in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and she said, come move here. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do there? And I found a ghost tour guide job.
I was going to say, isn't that one of the big ghost places in?
Yes, the Crescent Hotel in
Yes.
Eureka Springs,
You knew that,
Arkansas.
Terri, huh?
I did, because some of my podcast friends are ghost hunter-y people.
So I just packed up my stuff, put what I had in storage, and took off for Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And I ended up working 2 summer jobs there, the ghost tour guide, and then I was also setting up dressing rooms for musical entertainers coming through to the amphitheater in Bentonville, Arkansas. And after that, I'm like, well, that was fun. So come October, I'm like, well, what else can I do and where can I go? And so it just kind of snowballed from there. I was in Alaska last summer.
So you went from Arkansas to Alaska?
I spent the winter doing the Moscow Ballet tour. I also worked wardrobe.
Oh my God.
So I did the Nutcracker tour that ate my lunch.
Oh my gosh. Wait. So how do you even find these jobs?
Yeah, so I had worked stagehand work when I was in college because my ex-husband is a lighting director in theater.
Okay.
So I knew how to do the work, and I had been working at the Houston Ballet and the Houston Opera.
Oh, wow. Okay. So experience.
So I had the experience, and then I just kind of stumbled across this Nutcracker tour, and I took that.
That must have been cool.
Not hard. It was cool, but it was also very hard.
Yeah.
And I realized touring was not for me.
I mean, it's good to know what's not for you as much as what is.
Exactly. It's just as important. So January comes along, I'm sitting at home again and I'm thinking, well, now what? And I found a website called coolworks.com.
What is that?
Coolworks.com. And I started researching seasonal jobs, and it was all these younger people and, 20 somethings. And I thought, oh, they're going to hire an old lady. But I thought, well, what have I got to lose? So I applied for a front desk job in Denali, Alaska, and boom, they hired me.
Amazing. Had
And
you
I had
ever done no hotel work before?
none, none
Wow.
whatsoever. And that's the interesting thing about this work is that people assume you have to have experience. You don't. They
Mhm.
train people and they're very good at training people. So I'm currently working my second front desk job.
So many things. You're an adult, and there are definitely things that adults do, like show up, that maybe some younger kids wouldn't necessarily do. There's a responsibility factor. Do you feel like that was part of why they hired you?
And so I found it very interesting when I started working that there were older people working. And for the very reasons you mentioned, we're reliable. We tend not show up drunk or
Right,
hungover from the night before,
right.
which
Yeah.
I mean,
sometimes happens, but
sometimes. Sometimes,
um,
probably not as much because the hangovers hurt a heck of a lot more as you
Right.
age.
exactly. And they come on a lot quicker
Yeah,
than they
they
used to.
do.
So, um, the other interesting thing was, especially when you're in guest services and you're dealing with the public, we are very knowledgeable in how to handle people and how to handle situations. And since I had been a supervisor and I've been in the corporate world for 25 plus years, I can see how it was an easy fit for them because I do know how to handle people. And, if you're angry and yelling at me, I know how to deflect.
Right.
So much more experience in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true.
And, I generally, because I worked in digital marketing, I did work around a lot of younger millennials and Gen Zs, and I love them. I truly enjoy them. So I was not uncomfortable working around younger people. And then the other thing I realized was some of those jobs, like a driver, you don't want to hand that to a 20-year-old. They're driving around your guest, requires
Wouldn't
a
want to
little
hand it to
more.
me.
Yeah. So I found that a lot of the drivers are older, but a lot of the clerks and those kinds of things are also.
How old would you say like the older seasonal workers that you've come across are? Or do they range up to like 70, 80?
I think the oldest person I've worked with is 70,
Okay.
and he was a driver in Skagway, Alaska with me. Couples do it, best friends do it. And when you're looking at housing, they will put you together.
Oh,
And
yeah,
housing's
housing.
another issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So actually, that was one of the questions I had for you because you had just posted your video on your housing situation.
I
And
thought it looked pretty
I
nice.
did too. It was
Yeah.
spacious, but the only thing is you are sharing with a roommate.
I have a roommate, but you know what? I raised 3 kids and an ex-husband. Those were roommates, and nobody could be worse than my ex-husband for a roommate. So
At least you hope not.
I hope not.
I'm sensing a basis of comparison for everything here.
I have been very fortunate. I've had some wonderful women that have been my roommate, but Skagway was really kind of interesting. I don't know if y'all saw that video, but I inherited the name Snow White in Skagway because I was living in the driver's house and I was living with 7 men.
Oh my God.
Oh,
And,
wow.
we shared common areas, kitchen, living room. I had my own personal room. It did have a lock on it, but those guys, they didn't bother me. And I jokingly said, I live with 7 men. They call me Snow
I
White.
think that's
And
hilarious.
three or 4 of them were grumpy, depending on the day. So,
Oh.
Now, I hope to God they did not expect you to do anything domestic, like clean up
no.
after them or anything like that. Because, oh my God, I
You
would
were an
lose my
equal.
mind if
Good.
that were the case.
Yeah, they were, by the
Respectful.
time you get to between 50 and 70, you're kind of trained.
Yeah.
Somebody along the road has trained you.
This is true. This is generally true. This is
They
generally true.
weren't keen on cleaning the bathroom, but they were clean in the bathroom. So
Okay.
I kind of said, well, guys, I'll do the bathroom if y'all will handle all the other areas. And they all just kind of pitched in, and it was a very clean house.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
Was the Alaska job through the government, the Park Service or something like that? Or is this private companies?
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing I discovered that I don't think a lot of people understand is that the National Park Service really is only responsible for maintaining the park. The majority of jobs that are within national parks are actually run by basically three different companies, big conglomerate companies. So if
Really?
you go to,
Mm.
yeah, so if you go to Yellowstone and you stay at one of the Yellowstone lodges, it's being run by a big corporation, not the Park Service.
Okay. So
Are
you
and
applied through them.
actually I applied, well, yeah, you see Cool Works is like that job site kind of
Okay.
thing, and then you
Okay.
apply at individual places. But Skagway was a tour company. They were a private company. So I was doing sled dog tours.
Oh my
Um,
God.
You were that's my dream,
Oh
my
my
bucket
God.
list
I
thing.
literally want to
You were
be
doing
you.
them?
I was
Wow.
not one of the handlers. I'm actually allergic to
Oh
dogs. So
no.
Oh,
I just sort of delivered the people and handled them and
I would feed the dogs. I would comb them out.
Let's get back to all the seasonal work. Right now,
okay.
you're in Crested Butte
Yes.
and you are front of house, right?
Yes.
Reception or checking people in.
Yes.
Okay.
Front desk. Yes.
What does your schedule look like?
Yeah, day
How,
to day.
yeah, what's your day to day?
The seasons run October to April. So I'm contracted to work that season. Now I don't get Thanksgiving or Christmas off. So that's kind of a drawback. My week is about 8 hours a day for about 40 hours a week, 32, 40 hours a week. Beginnings of seasons are very slow and ends of seasons are very slow. So the hours can kind of fluctuate. But for the most part, I work 5 days a week. I have 2 days off to do what I want. Being part of a resort area, there are perks, discounts on the ski lifts
Nice.
Nice.
and those sorts of things. If you work for front desk, sometimes in bigger areas, the excursion companies will have you come out and do their tours so that you can help sell them. So there's some benefits to that. But winter is October through April, and summer is May through September. So I literally have 2 months off a year to do whatever I
Whatever
want
you
to do.
want. That's amazing. And what do you want to do during those 2
Yeah.
months?
Well, during the fall, my mother and I did a bucket list item and went to Ireland for
Nice.
Oh,
17 days.
Oh,
You know, that
fantastic.
wow.
that was cool. This spring, I'm actually talking with a friend, and we're talking about. I've never been through Utah and Yosemite and Teton, so depending on where my next job is, I'm thinking of kind of spending a month just going up through that area and checking it out.
You're contracted until April with Crested Butte.
Yes.
Is there an opportunity for you to stay there if you wanted to, do the summer season?
Yes, depending on how well I do here.
Right.
Yeah.
We're assuming you're going to do like
Yeah, we're
super
assuming
high
I do
level.
okay.
I think you can handle it.
I'm not too concerned.
Yeah, some people do stay year round. So if you
Interesting.
find a place you're really happy and you really want to stay, yeah, you can stay. I personally have too much wanderlust in my blood right
Yes.
now, and I just can't sit still. So
Okay. Now I have to ask wanderlust and safety, and you're a woman on your own doing this on your own. I think it's fantastic. Talk to us about the safety issues. If there are any safety issues, you feel safe and meeting new people.
yeah, the interesting thing about this kind of work is that most of us are all very like-minded. We're all adventurers. Everybody I meet is kind of has the same concept. They're not trying to join the corporate ladder. They're not chasing after materialistic things. So the most part, everybody's. A friend of mine says chill.
Chill.
Everybody's kind of chill,
Yeah, that's what all I was going to say is everybody seems chill.
The only time I get a little nervous is I did convert my Honda Pilot SUV into a camper.
Okay.
And so I camp out of my
That was the
SUV.
question.
Yeah. And, sometimes I get a little nervous that I lock my doors. I sleep inside my car. I go to campgrounds. I don't boondock,
Right.
as people say.
Mhm.
For me, that's just not comfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
Melissa, do you remember during the clubhouse days, we had those women from van
Right.
life
Mhm.
and they had developed an app for people finding safe
Right.
spaces and having conversations about, oh, don't go
Yeah, it was
there
all
if you're,
women,
mm-hmm.
yeah,
mostly in vans, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. I did a little studying of that, but because most of my stuff is employee housing, it's not a big deal. And I've never, even living with the 7 men, I felt perfectly safe.
That's definitely something I think anybody would want to be aware of if they were traveling on their own. I had a friend who drove across country by herself with her dog, and she was just like, "Oh man." Like there were places that I was like, I am not stopping here.
Right.
And so,
Yeah,
you got to listen to yourself.
absolutely.
And being an adult, we know hopefully by this age to listen to ourselves.
Very much so.
So I missed it if you said, did you completely move out of a house to do this? You have no home base anymore, or do you still have a unused house sitting somewhere?
So I left my ex to live in the house. I left him pretty much all of the
Oh
furniture.
my gosh.
I had an art studio because I do stained glass.
What?
So all of my art and my personal effects live in a storage locker in Houston, Texas.
Wow.
So I like to say my storage locker and my items live in Houston. I do not. Yeah.
Do you ever go back to visit your items or are they just sitting there?
Y-
Yes, in between seasons, I generally have to go change out
Yeah.
clothes, that sort of stuff.
You miss having your own space with your, even just to do your stained glass art and that type of thing. It's kind of a trade off there, right?
Yeah, it is for my art. I do miss that. As far as having my stuff, no, not really.
Stuff is kind of
Mm-mm.
an anchor, isn't it?
A big anchor,
Yeah.
and my storage locker is a couple of $100 a month, and that's basically my rent.
So you got rid of a lot of things before moving it in, and you don't miss them at all.
No. I have a
I
few
like that.
things that I would be heartbroken to lose, like my grandmother's china cabinet or
Mm,
something like that. But for the most part, my theory was that if I don't touch it in a year and I've forgotten I have it, then I don't need
it's
it.
really not that important. Yeah.
It's not that important.
Such good lessons, honestly.
Yeah.
Hard to
So how
learn.
long did when did you start your TikTok or sharing all this on social media?
So I started my TikTok, gosh, 2 years ago, and I was just
Really?
yeah. So I was just kind of fooling around with it, and I never really had any traction. I think I had like 350 followers that probably were following me out of pity. Uh, but it was kind of an interesting. I started toying with the idea of posting the seasonal information, and then a friend out of the blue called me and wanted to know how she could do it. And I thought, well, okay, that's my clue from the universe. Let's do this. And I posted that first video and I have gotten 190,000 views on it
Holy
now.
mackerel.
I have I mean, not to brag, but I have 9,000
That's
followers. I mean,
amazing.
I was
Wait,
just
is
like,
this
Off
the
that
one that I
one
saw?
video. Yeah.
that
I
first
wonder what
video.
happened. Yeah.
It's
I,
amazing what TikTok can do in
yeah,
that it shows something that the algorithm thinks is of value to a group set and it really
It worked.
takes off. And I think what you're doing is really important. All this really interesting stuff aside, I think what you're doing is showing that an alternative life after 50 is absolutely something that is achievable and not difficult to do.
Yeah, you're kind of taking away a lot of the hurdles too. I just watched the one you did on healthcare and insurance. And of course, that's been drilled in our heads from day one. Get a job with insurance, make sure you have insurance. But you're showing that there's alternative ways to get to that point.
yeah. So I get my insurance off the healthcare marketplace and it's based on my income, which I'm not getting rich out here, but I'm comfortable. And I think all of the hurdles, people say, well, I can't bring my dog. Well, a lot of these employers allow pets. And some people are saying, oh, I'd have to have a roommate. And I'm like, well, are you living with somebody now? We've always had roommates.
Right.
Yeah, I like to say, hey, think outside the box. There's other ways that you can live and be happy other than what's been prescribed to us since childhood.
What is the absolute best thing so far about doing seasonal work?
Oh my gosh. You want me to pick one thing?
I want you to pick, you can pick 3.
Okay.
But no more.
Okay, no more.
No, I'm kidding.
Number one is the people.
Yeah.
My coworkers, meeting people who are on vacation and being able to help them experience a good time on their vacation. Being in this beautiful country of ours. I mean, Alaska was just heart-throbbing, amazing. The nature, the scenery, all of that. And the third, probably most important for me, is just the freedom. I'm not tied down to a house or family. My kids are grown and cheering me on. So
They are cheering you on.
That's
That
what I
was a
gonna
question.
ask. What do your kids
They are.
think?
We have a joke, I always, before I'm telling them something big, I said, okay, in the category, what's mom going to do next?
Oh, you should make merch.
Yeah. What's mom doing now?
My mom and dad became big adventurers in their retired years. And they actually had a vanity plate, can't be found, because we were always like, where the heck are mom and dad? We had no idea.
That was before social and tracking and
I
cell
love
phones.
that.
Yeah.
I tell people, you don't have to wait until you retire. If you're 50 and you've been pushed out of the corporate world, there are other ways to live. Now, you do have to downsize. You have to get rid of stuff. But after a year, you realize I didn't need that.
Right now, I'm thinking this would be something I would love to try with my husband, who, I like him, so we'll keep him. But I would love to try seasonal work with him. And he just retired. I'm not. I actually love what I do. So, I'll stay doing what I do for a little bit. But
Yeah.
I just think it is so exciting to know that this exists, because I have this wandering heart. And when Melissa sent your TikTok to me, I was just like, she's my people.
I know it took me a long time to find these people, but
but you found your people.
Found my people.
Do you feel like you have a built-in community, even though you're doing seasonal work? Wherever you go, it feels like community?
Yeah, I like to explain it as adult summer camp.
Oh, what's wrong with that? Nothing.
Yeah, so I now have friends that live all over the country that I can pick up and go visit. Romances happen as well. So there are situationships that occur.
God. Now you're doing the kids speak, a situationship.
I probably have a bigger community than I ever had, because I became very isolated living in Houston, and I had maybe 5 or 6 people I kind of really talked to. But now I have this huge group of people.
Were you always kind of a brave person? Because I think it takes a lot of inner strength to do this. Or was this a big shift for you to make this move?
A little of both. I think I gave myself permission to be a risk taker. Raising kids, you can't be too off the wall. So my mother says my motto in life's always been just do it, because I have a tendency to just jump into things and figure it out as I go. So yeah, there was a little bit of risk taking, and I don't know if I'd call it bravery as much as sort of naivete.
What you don't know can't hurt you.
And what's the worst that could happen? I have a bad experience and I leave early and I go somewhere else, which
can you do that?
Done.
You can do that even though you're under contract. If you're like, I'm out of here, you're out of here. Right?
That's exactly what I did in Alaska. I spent 2 months and the pay didn't quite equal what they promised. And people weren't very nice. The guests weren't very nice.
Oh.
And so I decided.
That was another question I was going to ask. You said you like helping people with their vacations, but I'm like, sometimes some of these places and some of these guests may not be that easy.
Yeah. I worked in Denali and I left there in July to go to Skagway. So I went from a front desk job to the sled dog tour job. A lot of these places are very remote. So people come in expecting to have full cable and TV and their phones all working. And Denali didn't even have a grocery store.
Wow.
Yeah, and the next stoplight was 140 miles away in Fairbanks,
I
Alaska.
can't even imagine that.
But they need to
Wow.
know what they're getting into. That's
Yeah, but that's also on seasonal workers too. If you start looking for these jobs, be aware of how remote they are,
true.
because you don't want to be in a remote area with no car, or a remote area where maybe it's the mountains and you're a beach person. And I think you have to be very strategic in finding your jobs as well.
And it's all through
So
that
you-
cool work stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that cool work stuff, is that all United States based, or do you have any thoughts of doing something in Europe or Canada?
It's mostly North America, pretty solid mainland. Of course, Alaska is a big one, but there's also Hawaii. I kind of toyed with Europe, but I haven't seen a lot of jobs other than teaching English, and I'm not sure that's really what I'm interested in doing. So I decided my 2 months out of the year, I'd travel to Europe instead of trying to work there.
I think that's amazing. And
That's a good way to do it.
17 days in Ireland sounds fantastic. So
It was
you
great.
traveled all over the island, obviously.
Yeah, we
Amazing.
pretty much went from Dublin up all the way up the coast and around down to Cork. So
Fantastic. Oh, I love Ireland so much. It is so beautiful. But in saying that, where you are is absolutely stunning. And
I know.
getting to know the beauty of these states is probably one of the really great perks, I think you had said this, of doing the seasonal work. Where would you like to go next?
That was my question.
Sorry.
Oh. I've traveled extensively in the US prior to all of this. So I've always kind of traveled, but I've never really been through Washington and Oregon. So I'm kind of thinking I would love to be a whale watching guide
Fun.
in Washington. I think that would
Yes.
be fun. So I was actually looking at those jobs this morning before this podcast. So
That is very cool. I have a friend who I should tell she should do that because she is a major whale watcher. She chases the whale.
Does
Oh,
she?
she does.
Okay, well, don't tell her about Olympic carp or anything, because I
Yeah.
want that job.
So that's something you'll see that listed, and you'll just kind of sit and daydream about the next place that will be your destination.
Yes. What I wanted to tell people, and probably one of my videos I'm going to put out, is that they do start hiring for the summer in December and January.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So you have to be early. And when you do start looking, think about where you want to go. And don't just apply to one place. When I was applying for winter jobs, I was looking in Jackson Hole and Montana and Colorado, and I just ended up in Colorado.
And you bring your car to all of these places except for maybe Alaska. Did you?
Yeah, my mother had a fit when I said I was driving to Alaska. She was like, "No."
That's my dream too, but maybe not in a Honda Pilot. But I mean,
Yeah.
they're great.
Well, what
but-
I discovered is people caravan up. So that's the other part of the community is, you may work with some people and then y'all decide you're going to go back to the same place and you just meet up. Like
Oh,
there's
that's
several people
fun.
meeting here in Colorado. They're going to drive up to Alaska. So
Amazing. So these are all the pluses.
yes.
What are the minuses?
The minuses. It's kind of interesting sometimes the way the companies work. There is this thing called overhiring, which is what happened to me in Denali. They overhire in anticipation of people quitting. So you can be promised 40 hours a week, but you get there and maybe you're only getting 24 to 30.
And can you live on that?
No.
Okay.
And I have some bills I have to pay, like everybody else. So that can be a deterrent. And if you've worked in corporate America for a very long time, you're kind of used to a certain order and structure that I found in the hospitality industry isn't really as stringent, I guess is a good way to say it. Sometimes you can walk into a bit of chaos. But if you're willing to just kind of go with the flow and take days as they come by, then it's not hard. The high season months, you can work 60-hour weeks.
Okay. And do they pay hourly? It's not like salaried.
No, what I've discovered is the salaried people work harder than we do.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah, it's hourly plus overtime. And if you're lucky enough to get a job that pays tips, that's really where
So
the
the guide
money is.
stuff where you're doing guide things where people will tip you, that's probably a little bit higher yield.
Yeah, and that's typically where I get my grocery money from or my gas money. It's something that's like I don't have to pull from my check to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
If a woman specifically is wanting to do this, what we've talked about today so far, she's listening, she's going, I would like to dip my hands in this.
Out. Yeah.
First of all, are you offering a program, some information, anything like that? Or are you just like a helping hand? What would you suggest they do? If you have a program that you're starting, please plug it. Go ahead.
I don't have one. I've been kind of toying with the idea of writing an ebook. I actually have a degree in journalism. Right now, I'm just providing the information. The way I first did it was kind of a fluke, but I do think if you're a woman and you're wanting to try this, if you want to do your first job, do it somewhere that's kind of reasonably close to your home so that if you feel like you need to go home for a weekend, you can.
That's smart.
Arkansas was like 9 hours away from Houston. So if I felt like something was going on, I could get home very easily.
Okay, that's great advice.
Yeah.
What else would you suggest? Insurance. You talked briefly about open market insurance. So if somebody needs insurance, once they are a seasonal worker, they can get it through the open market. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I picked a physician that could do telehealth. They just added this electronic health. Well, I just filled out a questionnaire and boom, in 10 minutes I had a prescription.
Oh my
So it
goodness.
was like, I know. One of the things I discovered was don't drop your car insurance. Like if you are going to leave your car, put it in what they call storage insurance.
Oh, okay.
The auto insurance companies don't like it when you drop your insurance for more than 30 days.
Interesting.
Yes, and I did not know that. So I got hit with a hefty insurance bill when I restarted my insurance. And I had no idea.
That is great advice.
Yeah. I wish I had known that.
I wonder why. So these are good tips for people.
Do you have any other tips? Anything else you'd love to say? Let it rip.
Dream big. I heard people tell me that, dream big. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I know how to be a wardrobe person. I'll go do a tour. That wasn't big enough. So I think you really have to sit down and go, what is my pie in the sky and can I do it? The worst that can happen is they say no and you don't, and you haven't lost any skin in the game.
I think this is such a cool thing. I think you're
great
advice. I think you're also so
anything
cool.
in general.
Yeah. Who knew? I'm just this, I'm about to be 60 in 3 months.
Hey, me too. Wait.
Yay!
Is it 3 months, Melissa? I'm very bad at math. February. So.
Yes, February.
February what?
6.
Oh, I'm the 27th.
Okay. You're a Pisces.
I am a Pisces. You're Aquarius.
Yes, I am. The other thing is a lot of people are going to tell you how you can't do this. Ignore them.
That is great advice.
Yeah. As I discovered, I thought, who's going to hire a 50-year-old? I've never done front desk work. And what I discovered is they love us and they want us. And there is such a need for these kinds of workers. The door's wide open. You just have to walk through it.
And it really seems like it's filling your soul. You just are radiating.
Yeah, we didn't know you
truly.
Before, but you seem to be in a great place.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful to see.
I look back, it's that time of year where we kind of stop and think about what we've accomplished over the year. And I thought, my God, I fulfilled 2 bucket list items. I've been to Alaska and Ireland. I outfitted my car so that I have the freedom to camp in it. I'm doing a podcast of all things.
I guarantee you it's not going to be the last one either.
Right. Right.
Oh, well, thank you. My life is just so much more amazing than it was when I was trapped in Houston trying to figure out how to survive the next, what do you figure, 30 years of your life?
Yeah. I love that.
Me too.
We were talking before we started recording, and what did you say? You said my 50s were the absolute beginning.
It was. I had 3 kids. I had a husband that toured. He was never home. I was working a full-time job. I was stressed. My 30s and 40s were just survival mode.
Yep.
And then my daughter left. I was about 52, I think, when she went off to college. And suddenly it was like, well, it's my time.
Right.
Nobody's expecting anything from me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to live up to anybody else's expectations. That's when I just started experimenting and landed here.
I mean, it seems like you landed in the perfect place for you, and you're having a blast.
Because she's going to be landing somewhere else soon.
Yes.
So we're going to be so excited to follow you and where your adventures go next.
So speaking of following you, let's tell everybody where they can follow you on social media.
My TikTok handle is Bodacious Coach.
Love it.
Because I want to live a bodacious life, and I want other people to live a bodacious life. So that's my handle on TikTok. Instagram, I think it's still my name, Dawna BJ.
Yeah.
Facebook, I probably won't be on that much longer.
Yeah. Who needs it? I mean, you need Facebook for Instagram. Sorry. I shouldn't be saying We have a Facebook group. Join our Facebook group.
In groups. That's what Facebook is good for.
Actually, it is.
Yeah,
true.
that's true.
Facebook group.
I do have a YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
Called Bodacious Coach as well.
Fabulous.
I haven't really done a whole lot with it. I'm about to start reemerging it. I'm looking at doing lives, and I might get on Patreon so people can subscribe and find out, because
fantastic.
It is starting to be time to start looking at those jobs, because December, January, they start hiring. So if you're not 100% ready to do this, you might apply. That gives you 4 months to figure out how you're going to do it.
Fantastic advice.
Thank you.
This was so cool to talk to you. I feel like I could just stay on here and bug you all day.
I know, but she probably has a job to do.
And so do I.
I'm off today.
Oh, good.
But as always, you can follow us on Instagram, Mixing Up Midlife. You can follow us on TikTok, also on Mixing Up Midlife. We sometimes post, sometimes don't post. I'll try to get a little bit better. It's super awkward. I mean, I love the people who, like you just show up and it's all good and you have something really great to talk about. We post clips. It's all fun. We are also on YouTube. We just started our YouTube channel. So this podcast will be up on YouTube. Look for us there. If you have questions, comments, concerns, you can always email us at mixingupmidlife@gmail.com, or you can leave us a voicemail on our website, mixingupmidlife.com, 30 seconds or less.
Well, you ladies have been a dream. This is my first podcast. And I didn't know what to expect. And it's just so fun to talk to other women who want to reach out to people who feel like they're stuck and say, hey, there's other options.
There's definitely a need out there for this, a desire out there for this. People are just changing, I think, in their feelings of what is possible to them past midlife. So thank you for showing another way you can do it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
That is it for us this week. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Good. Lists are good. We never follow them, but they're very
I
good.
know.
Their starting point.
That's right. Get the ideas out there. All